to talk to you. I had the opportunity to be with some of your students last weekend at a PTA event talking about a dream that is bigger than me. And one of the students asked if I would come and share that message again here today. And so it is such a privilege to be with you today. As I said, I am an educator. I have been an educator in the K-12 system for almost 26 years now. And part of my talk is really about how, with what you love to do, and as you think about a career, especially those of you who are in high school. How many high school students are in here? Okay. Most of my career was middle school and high school. But as you think about a career, and you think about your life beyond high school, I'm going to challenge you today to think about dreaming a dream that's bigger than the stuff. Bigger than the big house and the nice car and the six-figure salary. But thinking about dreaming a dream that will really impact your world. Whether that world is your neighborhood, the world is your community, the world is the state of Washington. I want you to be thinking about today as I talk, how can you use the skills and talents that you have to make a difference in the world that will not just put food on the table for your family, but will really make a lifetime of difference. So this first picture is of my campaign. As she mentioned in the intro in my bio, I am the first African American woman to run for a statewide office, an executive office. So those offices are things like governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state. And this is one of my favorite pictures, partly because my hubby's in it. My hubby's the guy over here with the Starbucks coffee. But one of the things I believe is we can't ever do anything great by ourselves. That as we think about our future, as we think about whatever career we decide to take on, you need a team behind you. And I love this representation of my campaign because it shows you the team of people. This is just a small fraction of the team of people. But I really got into this race not to be in charge of anyone, but because I have believed since I was 18 years old that I had a destiny to be a champion for kids. That was my why. And I'll get to how I ended up in the teaching field. That's not at all what I thought at your age I was going to do. But as an adult, I knew I want to be a champion for change. And so I decided to run for office not because I've ever wanted to be political, but because I believed that the skills and talents that I've developed over the last almost 46 years, I could best leverage by running for office as an educator. I want to talk to you about kind of how I got to this place and the lessons that I've learned in the last almost 46 years of life, and how I want you to think about applying it to whatever you decide to do with your life. So there are 3 lessons that I talk about anytime I talk to young people. And by the way, since I lost my election, I've spoken to over 35,000 students. When your why is big enough, losing will not stop you. And so I want to challenge you to think about that as well. There are 3 lessons, though, that I want you all to think about as you think about whatever you're going to do in your careers. Those of you who are adults, I even want to challenge you to think about this. Number 1, it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. Number 2, every choice you make matters. And number 3, greatness is really not about being rich and famous. Greatness is about using the talents that you have beyond just acquiring stuff for yourself. Really investing those talents and those skills and those gifts that you've been given into your community. And so what I want to do is in a brief segment, tell you my story and how I learned those lessons along the way. So when you look at me today, you see a woman who has been to the White House. I've met President Obama. I've received an award from President Obama. I've met people like Richard Sherman and Pete Carroll. I played basketball with a guy named Dr. J, who I don't know if any of you play basketball in here, but one of the greatest NBA superstars. I've met Queen Latifah. I've had the opportunity to sing with some pretty amazing people. And so I've done a lot of work, but my reality is I started life as a foster kid. So this is the first picture that I have of me, but this is actually not my birth father. My birth father was a black man, and my mother was a white woman. And she was not allowed to keep me. So I started life as an orphan. That's why the first lesson is it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. I think a lot of times we make excuses for why I can't acquire greatness because of this or that. My parents got divorced. Something happened. Somebody died in my family. And what I want to tell you is not that those things don't matter, but don't ever allow something that happened last year or 10 years ago to stop you from being great this year or next year. And so this guy and his wife decided to adopt me. Here's my mom. They look so much like me, right? But these two, who had seen black people from a distance but had never actually met a black person before, made a very conscious choice to adopt children that no one wanted. And that was me. And then about a year and a half later, that was my little brother, who's not my biological sibling, but he and I were both adopted, both unwanted kids. And you know, when I think about adoption today, and when I talk to young people who've been adopted, I was chosen by a family. And I see that as an incredible gift. And so we became the only black children in our entire county. So imagine all of King County, two of us. People wanted to touch our hair all the time. And by the way, do not ever touch a black person's hair if you have not asked. Okay? But imagine being the only one who looks like you all the time. It was a very difficult thing. It was a very difficult thing for my parents. And so when I was a really young child, my father came home from work one day. He was a 7th grade math teacher, and he announced to our family, we're moving to the Netherlands. You know, as a 5-year-old, I want you to imagine being 5. When I heard Netherlands, I heard Neverland. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Peter Pan, right? That sounded like a great place to move to. That's not where we were moving. We were moving to the country of the Netherlands, but when you're 5, you have no idea where that is. And so, you know, my father tried to explain where this place was across an ocean. When you're in Minnesota, you don't know what an ocean is. You don't know what Europe is. And so we just got on a plane for 15 hours and ended up in this place that we had never seen before. My parents had never left the United States before. And suddenly here we were in this other country, and it became an incredible experience for us. What my father didn't know when he took that job as a teacher at the American School of The Hague is that it's one of the best schools in the world. And today, that school for kindergarten costs $35,000 a year. But I went for free, and my brother went for free because my father was a teacher there. And so we had this incredible gift to be able to sit next to really powerful people's children. And there was an event that would take place when I was 9 years old that would change the rest of my life and still inform who I am today. When I was 9 years old, the princess of the country of Egypt came to visit my school. And she came to talk about peace, because Egypt was not at peace at all at the time. And she wanted to challenge young people to begin to think about becoming world changers. And so she came to our school and she shared her story. And by the way, her husband was assassinated exactly 1 year later. But she had this dream of challenging young people to think about peace. And when she was done speaking, the 4th grade teacher picked 3 little kids to have lunch with her. And I got chosen to eat lunch with the princess of Egypt. And here I am, a little 9-year-old kid, and we're sitting down to lunch, and she's sitting right next to me. She said, "So Erin, how are you going to change your world?" And that may seem like an odd question to ask a 9-year-old. And most 9-year-olds wouldn't have an answer to that question, but I did. Because in my class at that time, at 9 years old, was a little girl from Israel. And in the class next door to me was a little boy from Palestine. And I had started teaching myself Arabic and Hebrew at 9 years old, because I knew that I wanted to fix the problem in their country. And I knew instinctively that if I was going to fix their problem, I needed to speak their language. And so here I was at 9 years old, sitting with the Princess of Egypt, telling her, I'm learning Arabic and Hebrew, and I'm going to change the Middle East. And here's what she said to me. She pointed at me and she said, "You, Erin, are a world changer." Now here's what I'll tell you. As a 9-year-old little girl, when a princess points at you and says, "You are a world changer," guess what? You believe her. And I believed that princess that day. And I went back to my 4th grade teacher. And I said to Mrs. Parlier, "Okay, Mrs. Parlier, the Princess of Egypt just told me I'm a world changer. What do I need to do now?" And my teacher, who I know now, had no idea what to say, went into her desk drawer. And she pulled out a packet of 50 pages of fractions. And she gave it to me. And I was so serious about what the princess had said that I went home and did all 50 pages of fractions that night. And I came back the next day and I said, okay, what now? And she was like, you did all 50? Really? Said, you told me that's how I was going to change the world. And she gave me another packet of 50 pages of fractions. And here's a lesson that I learned in that. And by the way, by the end of 4th grade, I had done over 1,000 pages of fractions. I was serious about changing the world. But here's a lesson that I learned that I want you to take away with you. Being average is absolutely simple. Anyone can be average. Being great requires doing what others will not do. And so instead of playing on the playground that year, I made a decision, I'm going to become a great mathematician. And that would open the door to places like Princeton later, down the road. It opened the door to taking college math classes as a high school student. And that would open doors for me. And so here's this little 9-year-old girl who suddenly is all about changing the world. And at 18, I came to America to go to college. And I ended up at Bryn Mawr College, which is the sister school to Princeton University. I got accepted at Princeton, but Bryn Mawr gave me more money, so Mom and Dad are like, this is where you're going to college, honey. And for those of you in high school, do not go to a college you have not visited. I did not have money to visit this college, and it was not a place that was quite ready for me. I learned that. But I'll be real with you, when I got to my college in 1989, there was a sign right off campus at the golf course, right next door, that said, no coloreds or Jews allowed here. 1989. And by the way, the sign came down in 2012. And I want you to imagine being a colored girl. And every time I left campus, being reminded, we don't really want your kind here. And that was a very difficult thing for me. I came to America planning to go to a great college and go back home to the United Nations and change the world. And in my first year of college, I thought about killing myself. I didn't know how to deal with having people around who didn't believe in me. But something would happen that freshman year that would again change my life. It was the summer after my first year of college when I really felt like maybe I'm a mistake, maybe I'm not really as smart as I think I am, maybe as a black girl I really can't change the world. And one day I went for a walk in my community, and I ended up walking outside of my college town into a little tiny town with a black community. And all the people in that community would serve as maids and servants and houseboys and drivers for the white people who lived in the mansions in my college town. And right in the middle of that community that day, a guy named Dr. J was playing basketball with his sons. They had 9 guys on the court, and they saw me coming, and they said, you look like a baller, we need one more. And my life would change not on that basketball court that day, but afterwards on the sidelines. As I sat with 6 young black boys, not one of them still in high school, not one of them planned to go back to high school. And when I asked each of these boys, what do you plan to do with your life as an adult? And not one of those boys believed he was going to live to be 21. It was on the sideline that day when I realized I have so much to offer the world. And I know exactly how I'm going to change the world. I know that I was made black and white, European and American, athlete and academic for a reason. And I made a decision on the side of that basketball court that day. I will use my life to make sure that every kid in this country gets a great education, to be a champion for kids. And since then, I married my husband, Mrs. Whoops. I got excited there. And this is my husband, and if you all live in this community and watch television, you've probably seen his brother, Jesse Jones, Cairo News. That's my husband's littler brother. And these are Mom and Dad now, these are my kids. And my message for my kids have each had their own struggles. My oldest son has something called dysgraphia. He can't translate what is in his head onto paper. My youngest son has something called Asperger's and really struggles with social interaction. My daughter, who's right up front, was abandoned by her mother. And then her mother died when she was 9 years old. Her father just got out of prison in November after 27 years. My kids have had every reason to not be successful. And again, I want to go back to my first lesson. It doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. When my son was in 10th grade, he said, "Mom, I have all these images in my head that I want to draw, but I don't know how to draw. Can I take an art class?" And this is from his very first art project. Oops. I'm getting there. Oh! We're going to get there. There's his very first art project. And it's called Brainstorm. Any of you like designing video games or playing video games out there? So he loves video games, and he doesn't just play video games, he designs video game characters. And this is the story of how he creates them. He thinks in the sky, it rains onto the ground, and his characters are coming up out of the ground. And here comes one of his 400 characters that he's created. He is now at Harvey Med College on a $50,000 scholarship, studying computer, science, and mathematics. My daughter, who I told you lost her mother at 9 years old, this is her on her way. She had the opportunity to go to Broadway and perform in a competition at 17 years old. She is now a junior in college. This little girl who lost her mother and whose father was in prison for 27 years is now talking about graduate school. It doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. And your choices absolutely matter. My oldest son, who unfortunately was called stupid by a teacher when he was 8 because he couldn't write. This is him on his way to audition for the show The Voice with the producers in Los Angeles. And he's also had the opportunity to sing an operetta at Carnegie Hall when he was 14. Your choices absolutely matter, each one of you. And each one of you has greatness inside of you. And so I want to challenge you today to think about how can you take that greatness and allow it to impact your world. One of the ways that I love to impact my world is through basketball. I've been playing basketball for almost 41 years. And I love to use it as a vehicle to inspire and encourage young people. I'm going to encourage each of you to find a picture of someone who motivates you, someone that you would aspire to be like. And this guy next to me was the Secretary of Education for President Obama. When I got my award with him, I said, you know what, this is the job I want someday. And so I see this picture every day. It's my reminder. Here's how I'm going to dream a dream that's bigger than me. This is me shaking the hand of a guy you might know, President Obama. Whoops. Again, greatness is not about being rich and famous. It's not, you guys. You could have all the money in the world. How are you investing it? And these are just some of the people I've had the opportunity to meet who are investing in their community. Stevie Wonder. If you've ever seen Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, this is Tatiana Ali, the sister. These are some young ladies who I met when they were freshmen in high school who are now, they're all first-generation college students and all on full-ride scholarships to college today because they decided to not allow the past to define who they would be in the future. They all made a decision. We are going to invest in ourselves and then we're going to invest back in our community. And the last picture, I think, is just a fun one, somebody you might know. That I had the opportunity to meet about 3 weeks before they won the Super Bowl. And here's why I have this picture. I am an athlete and I love athletics, but I think just because you're a great athlete doesn't make you a great person. The reason I have this picture is Richard Sherman was scheduled to come to my high school. And 2 of our boys, our football players, their father was killed the night before Richard Sherman was scheduled to come to school. And when Richard Sherman heard that these 2 boys who were football players had lost their father, he made a conscious choice to come an hour early before his presentation and just love on these 2 boys and invest in them. He gives away hundreds of thousands of his own dollars to feed and clothe students in the King County community. And that's what I want to challenge you to. Whatever it is that your gift is, whatever your greatness is, you all have it. I'm going to challenge you to think about how can you reinvest that back in your community. Again, it's not about the stuff. It's not about having the big house. How can you dream a dream that's bigger than you? Doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. Every choice you make matters. And again, greatness is not about being rich and famous. It's about choosing to invest yourself in your community. Thank you.